Good morning. Welcome to today's meeting of the Standards Committee on Friday, 21st of March. My name is Mike Lewis and sitting as chair today. Can I ask you, please, for any apologies for absence?
No apologies today, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. Item 2, any disclosures, please, of any personal or prejudicial interests? And indicated that I can see. Thank you. And then item 3 is to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 17th of January. 3 pages, I think, in total. So I'll take them in each page for accuracy and also matters arising. Please, page 1, page 2, page 3. Just one matter arising, I think, from me. On page 2, it does accurately reflect what I said at the last meeting, which is that for personal reasons, I've decided to stand down from this committee. And I did indicate at the last meeting that that would be from the end of this municipal year. For a reason that will become clearer later, I've agreed to stay on to the end of April, and that's just largely to help and support the transition, a smooth transition, with the appointment of new members. Excuse me. So it is accurate, Alison, as we said last time. But if we can just perhaps we can note that in some way that I will stay on, and I'll explain a little bit more detail later. Okay, so subject to that comment, can I just ask for a show of hands, please, to accept those as an accurate record of the meeting for those of us that were there? Thank you. Item 4, this is the Ombudsman Wales Annual Report and Accounts. Hugh, do you want to lead us on this one, please?
Yes, please. Yes, please. It is a lengthy report, running to some 160 pages almost. Much of it isn't within the purview of the Standards Committee, but if I just canter through certain elements of the report just to by way of explanation. So on page 4, and when I say page 4, it's the page on the bottom centre of the report, right? Not on the left, which the Ombudsman has put on as well. The Public Service Ombudsman has 2 specific roles. One is to consider complaints against public service providers in Wales, and the other is to consider complaints that members of local authorities or town and community councils have breached their code of conduct. It's the latter which falls under your remit as a Standards Committee. The Ombudsman sends out letters on an annual basis to councils outlining the complaints they've received. And this, a new chapter unfolds annual report, sets out some of their findings over the years, their statistics, and also their accounts. If I take you to page 5 of the report, that sets out some of the statistics showing there have been 16% more code of conduct complaints across Wales than the previous year, and 21 referrals, again across Wales, were made from Standards Committee upwards to the Adjudication Panel for Wales. Of those complaints, 176 were about community and town councils and 151 about principal councils. It's worth noting that of those figures, was it 300 plus complaints, only 55% of those had sufficient information with them that the Ombudsman would even have been able to proceed with investigating a complaint. Obviously, several of those didn't even reach the 2-stage threshold. Nothing really to add then for a couple of pages. If I jump you to page 15, I quite like the set out of the report. It's nice and clear. That just sets out the roles of the Ombudsman. It did make me chuckle because I just said there are 2 as outlined in the beginning of the report, but they do list a 3rd on this page, which says to drive systematic improvement of public services and standards in local government. So that's quite useful. And then onto page 16 and 17, I'm not going to go through it in detail, but it's just setting out some key statistics. More of a general issue, just out of interest. I'm not going to pick on them, but they tell you the number of complaints, feedback from people saying that 83% of complainants found it easy to contact the Ombudsman. And I think if anyone's ever looked at the Ombudsman website, it is very nicely laid out and it is easy to follow. And whenever we get a complaint, we can just refer them quickly by just saying ombudsman.wales and they'll get direct into that. Again, purely for information, I'll take you to page 25. This just sets out, outside of your remit, the number of complaints against the council. I'm only showing that it's an increase of 9% over the year, and it's up to 1,110. Again, that's pan Wales, but those are not code of conduct complaints. Specifically then onto the areas that we have an interest in is on page 33. I should say as well, please feel free to interrupt, ask questions at any stage. You haven't got to wait till the end unless you wish to. On page 33 of the report, it just sets out that the model code of conduct was introduced in Wales in 2008. That has been updated. I think it was 2016 was the last version that Swansea have signed up to. And we're looking at complaints here of 518 code of conduct complaints have been received. But there was only enough information to investigate 328 of those. That links back to the stats I was giving early on. But that's 16% more than last year. Of those, 176 complaints were about town and community councils and 151 about principal councils. And there's a nice little table there showing the growth over the period. Jumping to page 36, they've set out two case examples, which are always interesting to read. But case example 1 on page 36, specifically interesting because it's the Mumbles one that you dealt with as a committee. So, and as you recall, it was dealt with, it was appealed, it went to the Ombudsman, went to the Adjudication Panel for Wales. Adjudication Panel for Wales agreed with our decision. So, you know, it's nice to be reassured sometimes that we've been fair and open in that process. And the second case example there relates to a Ceredigion council matter. Nothing specific to say on that. Then I jump you quite away then to page 148 of the report. So bypassing all the financials and complaints against other areas. And we're looking now at specifically data about code of conduct. I'm not going to go into that much other than to show that the complaints against community town councils, pan Wales, have increased by 11% over the year. The complaints against principal councils have increased by 24% over the year. And then you can see the subjects for what the issues were laid down below. Then we get into Appendix B of the report, which sets out the specific data relating to Swansea and the stuff that we are particularly interested. So if I take you to page 160 of the report, and those are code of conduct complaints against Swansea Council. There were 7 complaints, 7 of which were the decision by the Ombudsman was not to investigate. Now then, I know you might be some slight confusion that you did deal with certain things, but of course that table, it talks about when they were submitted, and it's during that year, during that financial year, even though some legacy ones may have been before, like the Mumbles one we mentioned earlier. And then going down to page 161, we can see there the complaints against community town councils in Swansea, of which there were 4, and of which there were 5. 4 of them were not investigated, and the 5th one was Mumbles, which went direct to the adjudication panel. It's not the one we referenced earlier. It's one that bypassed this committee and went direct, which is unusual, but it does happen. I've got nothing else to add to the report, but I will take any questions that people may have.
Thank you, Hugh. That's a very comprehensive overview of the report. Do any members, Councillor Lewis, Mike Lewis?
Yes, thanks, Chair. It's not a question. There's there's one question. First of all, on page 148, I'm very surprised that the police and crime commissioners have had no complaints against them whatsoever. I feel that's quite hard for me to believe. That's the first thing. Second thing, when it comes to Swansea and the amount of complaints, I noticed that 28 complaints were housing. Well, I'd just like to put on record that Swansea is possibly has the largest amount of council houses in Wales. Most of the other authorities have gone over to registered social landlords. So we've got almost 14,000 council houses. So therefore, just to emphasize that most of those complaints were on housing in that table, and other authorities don't get that amount of complaints on housing because they don't have a housing stock. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Just to address those 2 points in reverse order, if you don't mind, Councillor Lewis, the housing stats, I take your comments there, but that's completely outside of the remit of the Standards Committee. They're not code of conduct issues, and the reasoning could be exactly as you say, purely on numbers. I accept that. With regard to the PCC, again, outside of the remit of this committee. However, when we say that PCC haven't had any complaints, what the Ombudsman is saying there, they haven't received any complaints about the PCC. Several complaints may have been made directly to the PCC, which in turn were internal matters, not code of conduct matters, or these are specific code of conduct matters. And what you tend to find is a complaint against a councillor tends to go back to the principal authority or to the community town council, maybe not to the PCC, because obviously you're sitting in two remits and it's difficult sometimes to separate where that complaint stemmed from.
Yeah,
so that helps.
Thank you, Hugh. Any other members? I can't see any hands indicated. Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Hugh. The report is for information, and I think again, thank you for the comprehensive way that you've highlighted the key issues. So thank you for that. And moving on to item 5, sort of linked, I suppose, isn't it? Breach of conduct, complaints made to the Public Service Ombudsman. Again, Hugh, can I look to you, please?
Of course, there isn't much I can add to this, to be honest with you. 2 complaints have been received. Both decisions of the Ombudsman are not to investigate, and obviously I can't share information because that's the way it goes, and so it's purely a bland table, not giving you much information, but just for the record, nothing progressed.
Okay, thank you, Hugh. Again, report for information. As you say, the information itself is limited, but grateful. I understand that's the way the system operates. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the formal agenda. There is just a couple of items of AOB I wouldn't mind covering, please. And it is, as I alluded to last time, Mrs. Margaret Williams, this is your last meeting, I believe, after serving on the committee for 10 years. So I don't know whether you want to say anything, but certainly, on behalf of the committee as chair, I would just like to thank you for your support and for your active involvement over the last 10 years. Margaret, do you want to say anything, please?
Just very briefly to say that it's been a pleasure to serve on the committee, and a very special thank you to all of the committee members I've served with on the Standards Committee over that period of time, and a particular thanks to Hugh and to Alison as well for helping out whenever I've needed it and being there. So thank you all very much, and I wish you well. I just can't believe that 10 years have flown by so quickly. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Margaret. And the second point I want to make, I suppose, is linked, isn't it? Which this is my last meeting as a member of the committee per se. As I intimated earlier, we have had a number of applications from for potential members, some strong applications, I'm pleased to say, and they have now been called for interview. We couldn't arrange a meeting of the Standards Committee vacancy panel before the end of the municipal year, so that's scheduled for the early part of April. I did promise that I would see that process through, so I've agreed to stay on to the end of April just to support that. So that's the reason that I'm staying on for a couple more weeks. But in terms of chairing this committee, this will be my last time in the chair, as far as I'm aware, anyway. But like Margaret, I just want to echo a couple of thanks to all the elected members, past and present, for the co-opted independent members. Thank you all for your active participation and for your support. To you, Hugh, and to Alison in particular, if the committee runs smoothly, and I know it generally does, it's largely down to you keeping us in check, Alison. The annual report is largely down to you, and I'm grateful I only have to top and tail and add a few words, but really, really grateful for the support that we've had, that I've had. And I wouldn't want to leave out Adrian and Tracy Meredith as the legal and monitoring officer. Again, it's important that what we do is done correctly and compliantly. So to you, Adrian, and to Tracy before you, my very grateful thanks. I know that it's been an honour and a privilege to be part of the committee for the last 7.5 years in my case, and to chair for the last couple of years. We've made some improvements. We've had, what I remember my first interview, I said the prevention is better than cure, and that's the ethos I've tried to bring to the committee. And I'm delighted to be able to reflect that the conduct of elected members is generally very, very high. So in that sense, it's good that we've got very little work to do as a committee. But where we have had to hold hearings, I think we've done them professionally and with due regard to not just the process, but the individuals involved. And I just want to round up really by saying a massive thank you to all of you, past and present, because I know I leave it in strong and capable hands as I step away. And I believe we're in a stronger position now than we were in the past. So thank you. Hugh, I can see that you're indicating. Did you want to come back?
Yes, just on behalf of Swansea Council itself, I'd also like to thank you, Mike, and to Margaret for the service that you've given to the Standards Committee. It's been quiet on occasion, and it's been interesting on occasion. And I think back to our last meeting of when we actually dealt with the case, how difficult that was. And I thought how well as a committee it was dealt with, and the professionalism that came with it, and the learning as a committee from it, which in turn led to our own procedures being tweaked just to get them better for us as a council, but also for the complainant and for the people providing the information, the witnesses, etc. So thank you for the learning, and thank you for your time on this committee.
Thank you, Hugh. Okay, it is on my watch 10:19, and I'm going to bring the meeting to an end. So thank you very much for your participation again this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thanks,
Bye.
Mike.
Thank you.
Bye.